We're here in London at the Google DeepMind event with Maureen Heymans. She's the engineering lead for the LearnX team at Google. Always great to see you, Maureen. This
Same
is
here.
amazing. Yeah.
So fun to talk to you. Always.
Yeah. I feel just so excited by all the ideas I'm hearing here. There's so many interesting people from across the space, lots of diverse perspectives, teachers, organization leaders, technologists. What has stood out to you so far about the event?
Yeah, it's been, so many things, so it's hard to pick, but I think what's been exciting is to see how many people are talking about encouraging curiosity and like really nurturing passions and I just had finished a book from Rebecca Winthrop about disengaged teen, and that really resonated with me because she's talking about how we can encourage more students to become explorer.
Yep.
And I think for me it's always been kind of how do you make learning so much more engaging so that students follow their passion, they understand the meaning of learning, and they can end up becoming people finding solution to big problem in society, right? And so I think seeing that excitement of how AI can actually be leveraged to make learning so much more engaging and intangible, but also really encouraging the next generation to be explorers.
100%. Rebecca Winthrop just spoke at the conference, and we interviewed her just a couple of weeks ago, so we'll link to the episode with her from the Edtech Insiders podcast. Incredibly interesting. Yeah, that idea of explorers, creating people who are metacognitive about their own learning. They don't have to sort of follow a script. They're not just trying to achieve and get good grades. It's sort of been the dream of what education should be. And it feels like we're starting to see AI, with AI coming in, we're starting to collectively imagine what that really looks like. What kind of education system would enable more and more explorers? And I'm curious how you see the Google Suite, the amazing Google Suite of AI tools as helping bring about that type of
It's
system.
A good question. And I always go back of like how I see how we can evolve learning at Google around those three evolution. And I think all of them are really helping building this next generation of explorer. Yes. The first one is really how do we make learning more engaging, right? Students, not every student is motivated to be explorer, and so how can you make it more engaging? And so, some ways are to make it more multimodal, right? Yes. If in addition to text, you start seeing visuals and you start being able to interact with the tool with voice, but we know that students learn better via multiple type of content, and so I think that's the exciting first step of making learning much more engaging. And you see tools like NotebookLM where you can upload your study guide, and it's going to create a podcast, it's going to create some video overviews, and we just launched recently flashcard and study guide. So it's giving you many different ways to consume information and really build this deep understanding, and also spark curiosity because you can find connection there. In NotebookLM they have mind map that shows you connection. So I think that's like one first step, how you make learning much more engaging via more visuals and more different type of content. And then the next one is how you make learning much more active and interactive, right? How do you start learning by doing? First practicing, because we know that applying your knowledge helps with learning, but also getting one step beyond of like really applying what you learn to real world application, right? And so, recently we launched test prep in a few of our products, like in Gemini, in Search, in NotebookLM, where again, based on your own content, we are able to help you practice, right? And then based on what you understood or your misconception, we'll advise what you can practice more. Like what you can revise, contents to fill those gaps, and then practice again and go through that loop. So that's another way to make it much more interactive. And then the last one, which I know everybody's been talking about, is how do we make it more personal, right? Yes. We all know that if you can have a personal tutor for every student, you can really drive much more learning outcome. And so again, that's a space where if you can ground it on your content, and so that's one thing we did with test prep. You can upload your own study guide, right? Because students want to prepare for what they are going to be quizzed on, and so if it can be grounded on the learning context, it's much better. But then also, how can we again adapt the level based on your understanding? How we can understand your progress, and really adapt the learning so that we help you achieve your goal, and we help you become lifelong learners.
Yeah, and test prep is a very specific and really interesting part of the education system where people are highly motivated. It's a very specific outcome, time bound. So it's a place where AI can sort of show its full capabilities of all the different pieces of personalization. I've also noticed some reading products here this year that are really interesting. I'd love to, I asked the director of product management about this because so many of Google's products, I think, is a huge strength of Google, allow people to upload their own content. They're sort of content agnostic. Learn about, learn your way, Gemini itself, Notebook. But you're starting to move into some reading products, which I think is a really interesting extension of the Google education brand. I'd love to hear you talk about that if it's something you...
Yeah. And of course, I will admit that Google has so many nice exploration in this space that you might be thinking of some reading product that might...
Read along.
Yes, read along. It's always been a product that became really popular in India, where it's really helping students learn and again making it more engaging and visual. But in general, right, we know that there's so many opportunities to help a student read and write. But the question is how to do it right? Yes. And because, of course, it's a big concern about cognitive offload and, the essay writing is dead and those type of things. And so, yes, we've been thinking of how we can help with the reading, the critical thinking, building that critical thinking, but also helping build the skill set for writing and really, having that struggle of thinking about a topic and really write down your thought. And so still like early on, read along is one of those first products, but really starting to think of how we can really help students build those skill set in the world of AI, because this is definitely going to add some challenges on how you do essay writing, but how do you do it in a way that, you first write down your own thought, right? And then you can start interacting with the AI to get feedback, to brainstorm, to expand your thinking, and then do your own writing, and then get feedback and get into that loop so that you don't delegate everything to AI, but you really use it as an extension.
Yeah, and Google always tackles like really large problems. I think that's something I admire about it. And learning English is the number one thing people are learning in the world. There's over 2 billion people learning English at any given time right now. And then of course learning to read is sort of this universal barrier to future learning. So it's really interesting to see Google sort of leaning into that space and saying this is going to unlock so many other things. Yeah. And especially in an age of AI, reading and writing and critical thinking, becomes sort of a feedback loop. You have to be able to do it to use AI for anything else.
Yes.
It's really interesting. So let's talk about the video pieces a little bit more, because it's something that just sticks with me a lot. I feel like Google's been way ahead with the VO model, with just the video overviews, which now can come in different flavors of overview. I'm curious how you see Google, and YouTube of course, how you see Google's video strategy as regards to learning evolving over the last few years. How are they thinking about what role video can play in learning?
Yes, I mean, it's going back to making learning much more engaging, right? We see that, if you can have a combination of visual and text, and, it really makes learning much more real and engaging and helps with understanding. And so, of course, we have an amazing community of creators on YouTube, and so we want to leverage them. And we think, those are really amazing teachers that manage to make learning so engaging, and so we should leverage them. But we can both use AI to again be an extension of those creators, right? They can make their video content much more engaging and interactive. And so we launched some of those features where, as you watch a video, you can pause and ask questions. But of course, we can, content creation, especially learning content creation, takes a lot of time, right? And so if we could help creators kind of make it easier for them via the VO and other creation tool to make it easier for them to produce high quality content, you can really reach a large amount of students. That's one way to really, expand what creators can do. The other way I can imagine is also you can create video and visuals for any content, any concept, right? I mean, of course, you will have lots of amazing content on video platforms, but then might not cover the full, scale of topics in different languages and personalized to you, right? So again, you could imagine creating those on-demand content based on your context, based on your interest, your language, and really have those personalized video experience that explain a concept just for you, and also based on your misconception and all of that. So I think NotebookLM is the first glimpse at this, because you can upload your content and it's going to create some video overview.
Yeah.
But I can imagine this expanding much further.
Then that combination of sort of tapping the massive YouTube video library and combined with generating new video at the point of need is a pretty killer combination in terms of...
Exactly. Yeah, and that's really, again, we're not trying to replace those amazing human creation, right? And I think it's a great example of how do you bring the best of human, especially in this case, creators that are so good at producing high quality, engaging content, and the best of AI to not only save them time, but also bring that content to the next level by making it more interactive, more personal.
Yeah. One really interesting theme of the day, it feels like to me, is almost like intellectual humility. It feels like it's bringing together these incredible people from all over the world, and sort of admitting that nobody has the full suite of answers about what AI education should look like or the best practices for it. Instead, we're sort of forming them together and trying to sort of figure out the best next step. It's really impressive for an enormous company like Google that's had so much success to sort of come with that humble approach. And I'm curious, and I think the Learn team has always exhibited that. I'm curious how that sort of informs your work, that idea of, we want to know the answers, we're heading that way, we're going to test everything we do, but we're not going to sort of just drop a whole bunch of solutions and say, this is what AI should look like.
Definitely. I'm optimistic, so in general, I feel like long term we'll find all the solutions to problems, but clearly we need to also be aware of all the challenges, right? And so I think, and we know at Google we are not going to be able to do it alone. That's where we need to work with experts, and we have in-house experts, which is great. Folks that are pedagogy experts, that used to be teachers, and I've been reading a lot of books about learning, but I'm not educated as much as those people. But then having external expert, that's what they do, is really think about those challenges, think about how you are going to deploy those tools at scale, directly in the education system globally. I think it's so important because I think I'm optimistic of the future, but there will be a lot of hurdles along the way.
Yeah.
And we need to partner with everyone, teacher first, but then of course leaders in the space. And so I think it's amazing to hear everybody. There's an excitement for AI, but at the same time, it's important to be aware of the challenges, right? Because when you're too optimistic, you miss the big problems. And so, those discussions, with so many people bringing their perspective from different sides of the world, they've been super interesting to open up those challenges so we identify the right solutions.
Yeah. People just representing so many different education systems and perspectives and approaches. It's really been inspiring. The last question I have for you is something that I think I've also heard as a theme, and I know you think a lot about, for the future of AI, which is getting to sort of multiplayer, collaborative, social learning.
Yep.
It's something that I think is the dream when we think about what AI should do in a classroom. It should help people learn from each other. It should help teachers and students build and maintain relationships. Students maintain relationships. Parents connect to, just strengthen the connections between all the different stakeholders in the educational ecosystem. How is Google beginning to think about this? I think we're starting to see an evolution of all of the AI tools to start to become more social. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, of course, as you mentioned, the first piece is to collaborate with experts and but when it comes to, and collaborate with teachers and, make sure teachers are in the loop. AI should never replace teachers. They're so important, but we can be, a productivity boost for them so they have even more time for human connection. Right. So I think that's the first piece, is like enabling teachers to have tools that can save them a lot of time so they have more time for human connection in the classroom. But then I think there is also a lot of power in connection among students.
Yes.
And of course, AI has a little bit of risk of being a lonely tool, right? Yes. Then it's available 24/7. It's not judgmental. That's great, but it's like a one-on-one relationship with AI. And so I think big opportunity again to make learning more social. Because not only it's engaging, like students crave for social connections, right? Often when they try to use those tools to use it for shortcuts, is because they want to spend time with their friends, right?
Exactly.
So I think if we can make it more social, so people are learning from each other, they're it's great, but I think it's also, I mean, we discuss a lot about 21st century skill set, and clearly collaboration is such an important one.
Yes.
And so if you can build tools that encourage collaboration, like hearing from others' perspective and building solution together, this is so key. I mean, it's always what I tell my kids when they might complain about group project. I was like, I did everything, and I'm like, that's part of what you will experience at work, right? It's like, whether you're part of a team or leading a team, you're trying to empower everyone to participate, and there'll be some people, everybody's bringing their own skill set, and so I think encouraging kids to build those collaboration tools through AI, I think is going to be so important. And I won't say that we have a full solution there. I think it's, again, something that is really exciting, and I think we need to think a lot about it. Not the easiest part of how to use AI, but I think it's going to be critical.
Yeah, it feels like the next chapter.
Yes, exactly. Maybe that's the fourth evolution, right?
Exactly,
it's like, after making it personal, how do you make it social and collaborative?
Exactly, and the ability to share, the Google Gemini Canvas, you can share artifacts.
Yeah, you can share NotebookLM.
You can share whole notebooks.
Yes.
I mean, there's already some implicit,
I think sharing is like the P00 of like social, right? It's like, hey, you create great resources, now you should be able to share it. But then now how do you make it much more interactive, right? How can you, I was chatting with someone yesterday, it was like, how can we have NotebookLM, people can comment on the NotebookLM, and then, go to the next level of like learning by doing together, right? Yep. I think that would be super powerful.
I'm really excited about that moment. Rebecca Winthrop did an exercise in the last session where she had us all sort of remember our own education and what worked for us. And I realized as I was doing it that I was thinking social thing after social thing after social.
Exactly.
I thought of like 5 social things before I thought of any class or any subject, and I was like, wait a second, I feel like there's something in there.
Yeah, human connection is what's special about the classroom.
Bringing people together, and just the relationships you build. The studies about college students are much more likely to graduate if they feel like they have a professor who cared about them. It's just like some really interesting sort of social currents in education. Yeah. I feel like it's the next generation.
And the biggest solution people have found is by bringing people with different skill set, right?
Yes.
And so I think that power of collaboration, because everybody brings the unique value to the table, is so important to solve some of the biggest.
Yeah, it also unlocks the power of neurodivergence, I think, in the classroom.
Yeah.
So everybody is bringing their strengths to the same problem, solving things together, working together. It just feels like a vision of education I'm starting to get very, very excited about. And I think Google's going to be on the forefront of it, as it has been.
Thank you. Yeah, and I love, so now I will add it as my 4th evolution of learning.
There you go. That's next. Maureen Heymans is the engineering lead of the Google LearnX team. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.